You're the first person. I have done maybe 100 podcasts. You're the first person who's ever was like, let me put some of your guys' music. I'm like, that's amazing. That's a really nice touch.
I'm all about showing how interesting people are, right? So if you've
Yeah.
got interesting stuff, I want to do it all. And I think it's going to be great. Awesome. Let's do it.
Hey, my name is Joel. I'm a recovering nerd. I spent the last 25 years bouncing between creative jobs and technical teams. I've worked at places like Nickelodeon to NASA, and a few others that started with different letters. I was one of the first couple hundred people podcasting back in the early aughts until I accidentally became an IT analyst. Thankfully, someone in the government said, hey, you're a nerd that talks good, and that spun me off into the world of startups, branding, and marketing for some of the same sort of researchers and startup founders that I used to hang out with. Today, I help technical people learn how to get noticed, get remembered, and get results. On Nerds That Talk Good, I want to do the same for you. I talk with some of the greatest technical communicators, facilitators, and thinkers that I know who are behind the big brands and the tech talk that just works. This is a little bit of a different opening for me. The music you're hearing is our guest today. I'm super excited to get into that, so let's just dive in.
Today's guest nerd, Anthony Pierri, is the co-founder of Fletch PMM, a product marketing consultancy that helps B2B tech startups discover their ideal product positioning or minimally viable positioning and bring it to life on newly crafted homepages. Since Fletch started, Anthony and his partner, Rob Kaminsky, have worked with over 400 venture-backed startups. That number's increasing by the day. I'm a huge fan. I'm a stalker on LinkedIn of your method. I think everything sounds incredible. We're going to get into that and some other stuff today. Anthony, thanks for joining.
Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
So I always like to start off with the nerd origin story. Right. So you're coming at this from the marketing and the copy side. You work with a lot of tech companies, definitely very nerdy, some of the stuff that you do. But I want to hear about your full circuitous path. I know you've got some interesting turns and cul-de-sacs along the way.
Yeah, I'll try to give you the short version. Every time I say that, it ends up being really long, so we'll see. But basically, I wanted to be an English teacher. Actually, a lot of people in my family wanted to be English teachers. Some of them were. The copywriter on our team now was an English teacher, and it's actually my sister. So she did English teaching for a while. I wanted to be an English teacher. My brother, who also posts on LinkedIn, he wanted to be an English teacher for a while. So for whatever reason, we've all wanted to go down that path. We love teaching people. We love words and things like that. But then we all ended up in different places. And so my older brother and I actually both worked for churches for really long. He still works at a church, but has a side hustle with LinkedIn. And so I went and was involved very much in the church that I grew up in, and then became on staff. And then I was going to start working there full time. It didn't end up working out. I got a different church job in the city of Chicago. My wife and I, we moved down there. I did that for a long time. Then we were going to move back because of the pandemic. And at this point, I had been working in churches for maybe like 11 or 12 years. I'm like, I need to take a break. I need to get something different. Like, I just been in this world for so long. I need to change. So a former boss, connected me with this agency that did product design, product development, and product management. And they were based in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It was all remote. And he said, it's like an entry-level sales job. And the funny thing is, after 11 years of promotions, with all the pay increases in a church, taking an SDR job in tech was a pay increase.
Yeah.
So, and this is a job that they give to 18-year-olds right out of high school. Here I am, much older than that, and have a master's degree. And I'm like, I'm getting a pay bump. And I couldn't believe it. I didn't even really know what the job was. And the company that was hiring me had never done outbound sales. So they were like, we don't even know if this is going to work. We hear that you're very adaptable and like ambiguous scenarios. And that's kind of a big thing about me, like getting my hands dirty and stuff that's like not fully figured out. And it's like, we'll figure it out together. That's kind of what's fun for me. So like, we want you to do this outbound sales thing. And so try it. So I come on board, and the first thing you have to do when you do outbound sales is, okay, well, who are we going to reach out to? And the company up to that point had gotten all their clients from the founders network, and the founders, incredibly well connected, had done a really good job building this deep bench of people who liked them and needed their services and things like that. But the whole point was to say, can we expand beyond the founders network to get more business? And so I sat down and we said, well, who do we want to reach out to? And he was like, I mean, anyone, anyone could need us. So I was like, well, I have to put something in the emails,
Narrow that down just a little bit more.
yeah, I have to make a list of someone. So we would try a different group of people like every month, maybe like fintech companies. I'd buy a bunch of books and stuff and reading all about fintech, trying to understand what we try that for a little while, no real traction. And we're like, maybe, I don't know, you want to do like logistics? We jump over there, we try a bunch of things. But the problem was that the audience and the services themselves were constantly in flux. The services were super malleable. And it was like any reason you could need a developer, a product manager, or a product designer, which is like almost an infinite list. Like my co-founder, I ended up meeting him at the same company. He once made a list. It was like 300 different services that they had offered. So it was like,
boy.
and I mean, but you could put them all under the bucket of like helping companies grow. That's the only service. It's just one. And it's like,
Right.
or is it 300, because that's gonna be very different. And if you try to market, we'll help you grow. Not gonna work. So I banged my head against the wall for like 9 months. No real traction. Can't get anything to work. And I'm like, I must be truly the world's worst salesperson on the planet. I can't get a single. Then they hired a marketing agency. They couldn't get a single lead either. Then they hired a third thing. It was like this whole program I went through. Couldn't get a single lead either. And what it unlocked for me, which became a big basis of our current company, is that if you keep everything open for the reason of optionality, you can't really do marketing. Like it just doesn't really work. You need to have a type of customer and a specific offer to be able to have a marketing transaction take place. And my co-founder, who I said he was at the same agency, we met. He was very smart. He had been at startups for a really long time. I come from more like on the content side, like doing stuff for churches and for like always did a lot of different bands and stuff. Did a lot of like social media marketing of my own. So I came in with like more of a content background and things like that. He came in with like all the actual startup and business experience and had been in entrepreneurial roles and things like that. And so the two of us, we met and we were like, wow, like, and we were really rounding each other out. So we start the business basically incubated inside the agency, and we started posting on LinkedIn, and then we were finding traction posting about this positioning concept. And we love this lady named April Dunford. She wrote this book on positioning. We're like, I bet she can't service all possible people who need positioning help. There's probably some more of the market that we could help. So we started posting about positioning, and then we were like, well, how do we evaluate people's positioning? And we said, let's look at their websites. Maybe we can figure out how they want to be positioned based on what's on the website. Because like there's those like early days positioning Mad Libs where you like say, we are X company for Y type of customer with Z differentiator. And you have this like long sentence. So we started reading people's websites and seeing if we could fill out the sentence, to be like, what type of company is this company for? No answer. What do we think that their main value is? No answer. What do they replace? No answer. And we realized like all these websites don't say anything. They would make no claims at all other than like grow your business, increase your revenue. And so we started posting these breakdowns, like we called them like homepage audits and stuff, trying to be like, listen, your positioning strategy is messed up. And then people started reaching out and being like, can you help me fix my homepage? Like, it's clearly bad. Can you fix it? So we stumbled into this weird positioning homepage hybrid, and we constantly were fighting that of like, should we just say we just help people write homepages? Should we say we help people with positioning? And it really was this thing that like it was a serendipitous total accident that they actually do kind of belong together. And we created this way of thinking about it where it was like, if you're going to rewrite your homepage, don't do it without figuring out your positioning. And the flip side of saying the best place to document and share your positioning strategy is in a homepage. And so over time, posting, once a day for a really long time, people start coming around to the idea, start getting interested, start reaching out to us, and we start getting clients. And then we build this business inside of the other agency. And basically the whole thing is helping people figure out their positioning, rewrite their website, specifically the homepage. And then over time, it's getting a lot of traction, and people are coming on and they're confused because they would land on the page of the website of the parent agency and they'd be really confused. They'd be like,
right,
like homepages or something. And it would be like, design, development, and nothing about marketing and positioning or anything. And then on the flip side, right, like people hear about us if they had heard of the previous company, they'd be like, wait, what is this? I thought you guys were like a design agency. So there's just like breakdown of communication. And eventually we realized it probably makes sense to just split these things up. So thankfully the founders gave us their blessing to launch off. We avoided any legal battles, which was nice. and we still talk to them, and we'll partner up on projects here and there. And so we spun off and started Fletch, which is what brings us up probably to today. And so again, I said it was not going to be too long. Here we are 10 minutes later. It's a winding road, a lot of cul-de-sacs, like you said.
Yeah, I really, that's an experience very close to mine, which was, finding myself at a marketing agency and being asked to do all the things. And, sometimes the agency's priorities are not exactly what is the most critical, most upfront right for the client. It was like, all right, we've got to have this website in 6 weeks, and add me as the content guy is like, we've got a little bit of work, some upfront work, which is why I call what I do message therapy. It's like,
I
hey,
love that.
let's get everybody in a room, figure your shit out first before we spend a lot of money in code and development. And I find, that many companies don't quite get that. They're not quite ready. And I'll tell them, we'll be redesigning this website in 16 months anyway, because if you don't have the words figured out first, and I agree with you. I think the website, especially the homepage, is like the crispest, most important presentation of the big idea and of your positioning. And it's almost got to be the last thing that you do. And so many people don't get that it's the distillation of everything. And if you're just rushing to, well, let's just redo the website, make it cool, make it pop, you'll be redoing it. So I feel that's a very, very common experience. So I'm very interested in the process that you take people through, and not to give away, full secret sauce or everything like that. But, it seems like doing this so many times, you have developed almost, you've productized this approach to the point where you can really go in and diagnose. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have when they get into the process? You've got a whole FAQ on your website that dispels a bunch of those things, but I'd love you to dig into, people show up and they're like, what are you going to do for me?
Yeah. So we are very we've used the metaphor. It's almost like open source software. We give away all the secret sauce. Like everything we do with clients, we post online. We actually did our entire end-to-end process of multiple workshops with a real client on LinkedIn Live at one point. So you're like,
Wow.
if you want to know what we do, you can literally watch it and comment in real time. Because like an open source business, you give away everything for free. And then there are certain people who will say, I don't really want to do this on my own. I really just want to pay someone else to help me do it. And clearly you know what you're talking about because I've seen you do it in public. So we made the bet. We were like, if we just we think the bigger issue is people saying, I don't know what they're going to do, and I'm not ready to make that leap. We think that's a scarier reality than people saying, I took what Fletch does and did it myself and I didn't hire them. Like that will be a certain group of people. And we think that this group over here is a bigger audience and a bigger market opportunity. And, if we can empower a bunch of marketing people to use our tools to better their own positioning and stuff in the process, great. Like more brand equity, more positive stuff. Like I'll get tagged in people's posts. I just got tagged in one today where this lady was like, we just repositioned our company. We use this amazing framework. So-and-so led us through the framework. And the lady commented on the post and was like, I'm just using Fletch's, framework. And I used it with this client and it made everything. So I'm like, great. The word is spreading. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the more credibility and equity you can get, the better. So effectively though, what we're doing, like the process we're leading people through is we think through all the different ways that they could position. And each of those in our minds represents a different bet that they could make. And we think of them as sort of like not to mix too many metaphors, but you could drive east, you could drive north, you could drive west, you could drive south. Each of these 4 different directions will have very different destinations, and a lot of different things will happen along the way. And so for us, we take a company and we'll say, let's think about what would be the different ways you could position. Let's say you could go after these big enterprise companies primarily. Imagine that's going east. Maybe you want to go after these really small business companies. That's going west. Either one of those approaches, if you were to prioritize one group over the other, you're going to end up with big changes to your go-to-market strategy, your product, all sorts of stuff like that. Or do you want to split the difference and be like, no, we want to go after them both equally? And each one of these decisions will have trade-offs. There'll be a reason why you would take that strategy, like we call it like the thesis of the strategy. And there'll be risks of saying, if we try to split the difference and go after both, we basically have to run 2 go-to-market plans. We have to have double the amount of people, maybe double the amount of money to really get enterprise and SMB, versus we prioritize one, we could probably get more bang for our buck, but the risk would be maybe we prioritize the wrong one, right? Or something like that. So what we do with clients is we lay out all the different positioning strategies, and we have a model for this, right, of how you actually visualize them. We just get them in rows, and then we put little, here's the thesis of this strategy, here's the risks. And then we say, all right, imagine that we're a financial advisor, and we just ask you, like, how big is your risk tolerance? You know, do you want to take this one? It's super risky, but maybe could make you $1 billion company. Maybe. Or do you want to you want to put it in stocks? You want to put it in bonds. You want to be a very safe investment. And you're not going to maybe make a ton of money, but you're going to be a successful, profitable, stable business. And then the client ideally chooses an option. And we have the first workshop we run is on a Monday. The second one's on a Wednesday. We leave a day in between and we say, that's you guys to get in a room and battle it out and figure out what you're going to do. And then from there, ideally they pick. And then we spend 2 more workshops basically figuring out what would be the messages we would need to make that make sense. Like if we're going after this enterprise group, what are they going to be comparing us to? What do we have to say? What is our differentiation against this competitive alternative, right? Like what category do we want to put ourselves in? All these types of framing questions for the positioning for that specific group. And then we say, great. So that's week 1. And then it's a 2-week sprint that we do with every client. The second week then is all around, all right, we took everything from that and we wrote a page. And here's what the sections would look like. Here's the actual words. It's the strategy documented on a homepage. And then we do 3 rounds of iterations for that to get you to a final page by the following Friday. So in a perfect world, you've really solved both the positioning strategy and the homepage copy within 2 weeks. And that's why we call it a sprint. And we've even been telling people, like, this is going to take a lot of fast decision making. If you're not really up for that right now, this might be not a good process for you. It's for people who said, I've gone through this for hours and hours and hours, and I need to get unstuck. And now, this is my chance. I'm going to use them as a forcing function. We're going to go through their process, and we're going to pick a direction finally, and we're going to put it on the homepage.
Yeah, I think the decision making is always one of the biggest challenges. A lot of the companies that I work with, it's like we've done the work, and I presented you maybe the preliminary messaging or a nominal layout. I need you to make decisions, and sometimes it's that silence that comes back. They haven't responded back. Do you find there's a sweet spot in company size, company maturity, company type that you work well the best with, or are there some that you're just like, I would love to take your money and help you out with this, but there is no way you're not ready, and I can already see those red flags. Like, what are the green flags and the red flags for someone who's ready to do something like this?
So it's funny because we've talked about this a bunch. The thing that we have found is the most important green flag. Is there a high enough level champion that believes the same things that we believe? Yes or no? And so it's like size of company. We used to think it was a better gauge of like what's going to be a good fit or not. But we have found very early stage startups that do not agree with what we think. And because it's a 2-week sprint, we cannot waste a single minute battling out like fundamental marketing principles to be like convincing people of these things that we think are very true. And it's the reason that content has been such an important part of our strategy, is because ideally we are having those arguments for months and months and months before they ever reach out. And either we convince them or we don't convince them and they self-select out of the pool. But if we do convince them and then they get on the call, we can basically say, awesome, we kind of have a shared worldview, and now we can really make this thing work. And that is sometimes true with small companies, with big companies, and not true with small companies and big companies in probably equal measure. That we'll find some big enterprises and the champion, like the CMO, whoever brings us in, is like, I'm a total Fletch believer, and those projects can go awesome. But other times, it's a big company brings us in, and they're like, yeah. So like we just did a project where the champion person who loved what we did she wasn't even on the project. So she convinced the team, and then I start session 1, and I'm like, "So how much are you familiar with what we do?" And the whole room is like, "Yeah, we don't really know anything about you."
Yeah.
And I'm like, how not set up for success is this project in the fact that, like, we're about to try to make 18-month decisions,
Yeah.
and you're gonna turn your trust to this guy that you literally don't know me from Adam. Like, someone on your team convinced you to get this, and you're like, "Okay, I guess." It's like in those ones, it's a crapshoot whether or not it works out or whether it's a huge waste of time. And we've even made a joke like, you know, the most extreme would be like, "Oh, you're a referral? You don't know us? We're not gonna work with you." Just, come back in a year
Yeah.
when you've read our stuff. We've also joked around like, let's write like a 100-page book and be like, "I'm
I
gonna
was
send you
I
Hear
was
it?
just about to say you gotta write a book.
Gotta get the book."
My book comes out this week, and I'm so excited because, like you said, it lays everything out in there, and it's like if you get it, then great, you
Great.
could do it yourself, and if not, that's why we're here. And I found, but I'll tell you, this was not an easy
Yeah.
process to go through.
Yeah, and that's like literally probably our next thing is we're gonna try to do is to write some sort of book, and whether we like sell it or promote, like, whatever. But the idea would be during the sales process, we'd be like, "I'm just gonna send you a copy.
Yeah.
If you don't know us, read it over the weekend, and then just see what you think. If you're like, wow, these guys are so smart, great, let's work together. If you're like, this is so stupid, I'm like, don't buy the project, right? Like, save your money. You're not
Yeah.
gonna like it."
Yeah. Oh, it should be the user's guide to working with Fletch. There you go.
Yeah.
So I've got some people. If when you get ready to jump into there, I've got some lessons learned for that.
Great,
Um,
great. We'd love to hear.
What I'd love to do, speaking of giving away the process and the sauce, is something that I'm starting to do with people, which is take you through my process, which is using my message deck, and I call this is the message therapy. So what I'm going to do, we're not going to do a full workshop.
Yeah.
I've pulled 6 cards. So there are 6 cards in the system. They start up at the top with the big idea. I can never line this thing up. Up with the big idea, story, value, sort of like mantras, proof points, technicals, all the way down. I'm gonna basically throw a card at you. I want the first thing that comes to your head.
Very
right?
cool. And
And-
this is for my business, or what would this be for?
This
What's
is
the
this is
context?
for what you do and what you
Got
do
it.
in the industry, what you're seeing in the
Okay.
industry, right? So we're doing a little bit of
Love
Fletch therapy here. So this is the big idea, the gaps. What gaps are you seeing in the marketplace right now vis-a-vis messaging marketing?
Yeah, I would say there's usually a gap between the CEO really wants one type of messaging that matches the conversations they're in. They get brought in on the biggest sales deals, and then they're like, we lost this thing because we couldn't prove ROI. We got to get the ROI message on the homepage. And then the gap is the people actually shopping on homepages, taking calls with AEs, are not CEOs. They're like managers and directors. And what do they not care about? They do not care about the company's top line revenue or bottom line profit. They're not staying up at night being like, "Oh no, the P&L is looking so bad. Me, a senior manager, I feel responsible." And so you end up with this problem where a lot of times high up will push a message and force the marketing team below to put this out that actually will end up alienating all the people who would have started the sales process in the first place. Is that kind of what you're going for?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great sort of big idea. Like we can help you solve that problem. Like boom, there's your big idea. All right, bruises. These are your stories. Oh, where have you failed before in your development, and how did you overcome it? Like maybe you already sort of talked about it, but like, what's a eureka moment or a bruise that you experienced that you want to keep your clients from experiencing?
Yeah, and so this would be my bruises in terms of with real clients, or the client's bruises have because of that problem, which would be more accurate.
So here's where we play a therapist. What does that mean to you?
I would say, let's say the client bruises, maybe. Would that be more helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say the client bruises is like you're going to end up putting out messaging that doesn't actually resonate. And people will say, "Oh, I don't know why I should pick you over the other people," right? Like I looked at your website and it says that you will help increase my top line, but like, okay, but I need a CRM, and should I get you or HubSpot? Like, I was thinking about HubSpot, but I heard about you guys, and you're not really giving me any info or any ammo to make the case other than saying you're going to help my business. But HubSpot also says they're going to help my business, and they're 10 times bigger than you.
Yeah.
So usually you end up with these consistent problems where it's like, it's not matching.
Right. All right, here we go. Value propositions, a little bit more logical, still emotional. Intangibles. So working with Fletch, what's an intangible that you deliver?
Yeah, I say a big intangible is really the clarity to understand the options and see them in a very this or that manner. Because I think also same issue with a lot of executives is they think you can just do it all.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, why can't we just do both? And it's like, well, actually, there's only so much real estate on the page. You can't do it both. Like, people will not, if you just stuff everything on a homepage, they won't read it. So I think the clarity is really the biggest part that people are buying is like, we actually want to just see these all laid out and understand the paths forward and then finding alignment, right? Where you're going to end up where everyone on the team really is on the same page. Like that is, we're going east.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly what the destination looks like, but we're going east, and that's where we're going to find it.
Yeah. The this or that, forcing the this or that is crucial.
Yeah.
All right. Mantras. Echo. What is a phrase you hear from your customers often?
Yeah. When we hear this all the time, people saying, people read our website, but they don't get it. When they get on the demo, they love it, but they read the website, they didn't get it at all. And
Yeah.
we're like, it's a disconnect. That's a big reason why this positioning stuff is so important, so that it's like they'll even get it just on the homepage without you taking 30 minutes to explain it.
Yeah. You don't have to get them in the room.
Yeah.
All right. An environmental proof point. So this is kind of like a third-party environmental thing. What's a third-party statistic or trend that supports the case that you're trying to make? So it's not something that you can say we have shown, but it's Gartner says, Forbes has said. If you just look at the market, it points right at us. We don't even have to do anything.
Yeah, for sure. There's a company that we really respect called Winter, and it's WYNTER. And their founder, his name's Pep, really sharp guy. He does these big qualitative surveys of he just did one of 300 CMOs of companies making $50 million or more a year. And they did all this qualitative survey around how they buy, how active are they in the process. And it confirmed so many things that we had seen anecdotally, but from a bigger pool of a bigger sample size. Things like executives aren't the ones shopping on homepages. It was something like 13% of the time was an executive the one who was championing from end to end. The rest of the time, it was someone much lower. And they were lower even than we thought. We thought it would be like director or VP. They were like, no, it's literally director or manager. Like it's often a manager who's the one spearheading a big SaaS purchase, like a really high, potential IC level person. And so we were like, wow, that's amazing, because that confirms what we've been saying, that it's like you should be writing for that person who's actually going to be reading these pages and comparing and weighing the pros and cons of different solutions and things like that. That's the person you want to write this page for.
Yeah.
So that was really confirming. And then also other things like we're very bullish on most companies that buy software actually care what the software can do. And that sounds like a crazy concept. But in this world, nobody cares about features. Nobody cares about that. All they care about is the outcome. It doesn't matter what your product does. In the surveys that Winter has run, I think they said the most important factor in the whole buying process of whether or not a company bought it was the product demo. It's like, interesting.
Wow.
It's almost like people really do care about knowing what the thing they're buying is.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, if you extrapolate it beyond software, you're like, when you buy a car, do you think it matters what the car is and what it does and how it looks? Or are you just buying the outcome? I just need a way to get from A to B. I don't care anything about that. It's like, no, humans care about the things they're buying. And it's even the same with software, even for enterprise software, which is, it's a different species. They act like these enterprise buyers are not just literally people like you and me who are like, well, yeah, what does this thing do? And so answering those questions. So we were very validated from these external proof points that it was like, yeah, the rules of humanity extend also to enterprise buyers.
Right.
People are people everywhere.
Yeah, I say that's emotion, that's the experience, and it's if you're comparing technologies on capabilities and apples to apples, then the one that is a little bit friendlier, the one that
Yeah.
speaks to you, the one that uses your language, that's the one that you're going to go to. All right, last one. This is at the very bottom, the technical integrations. What is required to integrate or use your solution? So for Fletch, what stuff do you have to have up front? What before you show up to that first session, what kind of work do you think needs to have been done?
Yeah, people ask us this all the time. It's a really good question. We usually say like, A, do you know enough about your customer base and potential customers to even know bets that you could make, right? And so we say we have you fill out this really big intake survey that asks you all sorts of questions about the market and the customers that you have today and where do they come from and what are they looking for and how do they use you, and depending on how well you can answer those questions is sort of like how good of an output we can get to. Like we'll work with anyone at any stage if they have the same belief system as us, they're aligned on what the process is, they don't understand what they're buying and they want it and they think it's gonna be helpful for them, we will work with them. But the output will vary based on how well you know your customers. So like when we ask questions like, well, what would they use instead of you? And if they don't know the answer and they just make it up, and we build a whole positioning strategy of how we're so much better than this other solution, but nobody in the market's using that other solution or even considering it, this positioning strategy is going to fail. And so it's always a question of how well do you know your customers? And sometimes it really has to be a stab in the dark. Like when you're very early on in the business, you might not have it. You still need to do positioning, but it's going to be built on slightly more of guesses and hypotheses. That's fine. We just need to know that going up front.
Yeah.
So for us, it's like coming in with enough information that you would feel confident to make a bet. That's kind of the sweet spot. Some companies have way more, some have way less. But again, if you we've gotten to the point where some companies where they're like, I can't make a decision. We're like, okay, we could pause the project. We could come back to it later. We could refund you if you want. Clearly, we didn't have enough that we were like, I can't make a decision. I'm not gonna be willing to do this. That's obviously where the whole process breaks down because it's predicated on the fact that we're going to be making decisions. So that's probably my answer.
We'll get right back to my conversation with Anthony, which is amazing. We're going to hear some more of his music. We're going to talk about the band a little bit later on towards the end. I just wanted to bust in and say, hey, it's been a little while. I was on a hiatus after the conversation with Guy Kawasaki. If you haven't listened to that, you need to go back to the previous episode and listen to that. It was amazing. It took a little while to retool, did a little thing like releasing a book. So things were been kind of busy. But I'm going to start rolling out some more episodes. If you want to be on the podcast, I am looking for nerds. If you are a nerd that needs to learn how to talk good, I am looking for clients and just looking for friends. So head on over to nerdthattalksgood.com, learn all about the book. You can buy a copy. You can buy signed copies. You can buy copies of the deck. You can buy, pretty soon I'm going to have the coins for sale. Everything is on sale. Everything is on sale. I'm going crazy. I'm super excited. Really glad to be back. And let's get back to our conversation with Anthony.
If you do get it to the point where you have to make a decision, where are you on A and B testing, or maybe, you talk about that minimally viable positioning. Like, we got a conference coming up. Let's just take one of our bets and just try it. Because I try to get my clients to what I call like a first principles messaging. And it's like, it could bend either way depending on, what you need it to do. So before you commit it to the big marketing project, maybe pilot it or test it. Do you do any of that?
So it's tricky because what we're evaluating is the future.
Mm-hmm.
And some ideas are testable in an afternoon. So for example, if I'm selling, the pop socket on the back of my phone, say I make these pop sockets where I hold it like this. There might be two or three different ways that we could position this, for different people. Like maybe some people are really interested in having the ability for it to stand. That's really what the problem they're solving is whenever I try to watch a video, I can't stand it up again, it falls down. Right. So I'm positioning it for one group of people who want to balance their phone while they're doing the dishes or something. There's probably another group of people who are like, no, I think it's just really uncomfortable when I'm holding it. Like this feels it's so big. And so positioning as a better holding tool to make it easier, maybe that's a separate group. We could run Instagram ads and find out in an afternoon which one of those positioning strategies is going to work better. Are people who want to do the watching, are they more likely to buy? People who are more interested in the holding, are they more likely to buy? Great. So we could go out and test that and get it done. Now, what happens though, if I'm testing a strategy that takes a little bit more time for people to understand it, see the world in a different way, there may not be a way to test that in an afternoon. There might not even be a way to test that in a month. There might not even be a way to test that in a year. Like, let's take the far end of the spectrum. Someone who's like, I'm going to build, it's 2005 or something. And you're like, I want to build an electric car company. I can't go out and A/B test. Here's a gas car and here's an electric car. Which one do you want to buy? Everyone would be like, why would I buy an electric? There's no chart. Nothing even exists. And that positioning strategy, you would say, there's no market for electric cars. Fast forward 15 years, there's a huge market for electric cars. Every company in the world of cars are making electric cars. That's an extreme, but even take us. If we had gone out at the very beginning, take away all of our LinkedIn content, all of our thought leadership, and we just went out to a conference and we set up a booth and we said, we'll help you figure out your homepage positioning. People would come over and they say, what do you guys do? Well, we basically run a series of workshops to figure out the way to position your product, and then we get it documented on your homepage. And they're like, oh, cool. So like, what do you charge? We're like, well, it's like $7,500 if you're small. They're like, wait a minute. Well, you design the website, right? I said, well, no. Wait, you don't? Do you develop it? No, we don't do that either. Oh, what do you get? Well, I just give you a wireframe. You still have to it's the whole website though, right? No, it's just the homepage. What? You're charging $7,500 for the copy on a home? No, it's not the copy. We're helping you with the positioning. Oh, like the April Dunford stuff? Yeah, similar. Who are you? We're just like two guys. They'd be like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. They would have walked away. Me and my co-founder, Rob, we'd go home sad with our tail between our legs. I guess there's still market. Yeah. Nobody wants it. The positioning didn't work. We tested it. Nobody liked it. Again, now, imagine there's a world where 12 months of thought leadership content, growing an audience, building a POV, all of a sudden, there is a big market. We do roughly $1.5 million a year from people who now think that exact same sales pitch, it's worth not just $7,500. If they're larger, it's worth up to $20,000 to do that process with us. There would be no way to test that bet because you can't run parallel universes, right? Like, let's run 18 months in universe A, where we become thought leaders around positioning for homepages, and 18 months in universe B, where we do website design and there's a copy element, and there's just no way to do it. So that's why when you're dealing with the future for certain positioning strategies, you can't really test it because you're talking about multi-month stuff. Like we talked with we're working with another company, and basically we walked it out with them. We were like, okay, it's a new strategy. How long does it take clients to buy from you? And they're like, it's a 12-month process. It's like, okay, how long is it going to take to get the word out that this narrative exists? And they're like, it's easily going to take 2 quarters of marketing to even get this out. It's like, great. So whatever decision we land on is going to be 2 quarters of marketing and then a year of a sales process. And then when they buy, what do those clients do? Are they good clients? Will they upsell? Will they renew the year after? Or will they be much worse than a previous client base that you were positioning for before? So sometimes we won't even really know if the strategy was right for 2 years. And it's like, we struggled with this for so long because we're like, everyone's like, how do I know I'm making the right decision? And you want to give them some sort of bulletproof thing. But at the core level is we are trying to solve entrepreneurial risk. And if anyone can solve that problem, they will be not a billionaire, a trillionaire, because 95% of startups fail for either marketing, positioning related or product related or market timing or shifts. No one can solve knowing the future. And so, like I said at the beginning, there are certain products that could be tested in an afternoon. You could go to a conference, ask people around, and you really know if that's going to work or not. And there are just other bets that you're just not going to be able to know. And you just got to, that's the founder intuition, founder gut to say, I'm charging in that direction because that's where I think the market's going.
And that is being a good partner, a good salesperson, being honest with the client. I see way too many people are, they're selling a package and they're like, yeah, we'll do it guaranteed, or, these big outrageous claims. And I think being honest with the client, and that's where being a consultant comes in, not being a burger flipper, not being just, I'm going to just be an agency and I'm just going to take orders. And there's real value, I think, in what you do, which is incredible.
And we also, along those same lines, right? Since the beginning, we have never once promised customer outcomes. So for this, I try to get this in a post at least 100 different times. My latest one, I think is my best, is that you have a bucket of things that the company can control, and then you hope that customers will respond to those things with actions. And so, like, for example, we can build an SEO optimized website, or let's say, but we can't make someone force them to type in the search that will get there. We can put marketing out to reveal a problem, and we can hope that that drives them to put the search in, right? But we actually can't control what the customers do at all. We can make really clear copy and good CTAs, but we cannot make the customer click those CTAs, right? We can get on a sales pitch. We can pitch them the offer, but we cannot force them to buy it. And so us as consultants, we, since the beginning, have never promised that the customer will do X or Y or Z, because it's not in our control and it's not even in the company's control either. So we always have said since day one, we can promise things that are in your control. By the end of our 2 weeks, if you follow the process, I could guarantee, I could write this in the contract, I will guarantee that you will have chosen a strategy, and that the strategy will be internally consistent and based on your understanding of the customers, will be framed in such a way that would be clear and concise and ideally compelling to someone on the other side. But we've never once said you will get more clients, you will get a higher conversion rate. We will share, like, previous customers say that. Like, we have testimonials where people say, working with Fletch increased my conversion rate by X%. Working with Fletch, I nailed my ICP and got all these new, like, so again, but we cannot control what's on the right. And so we say, don't buy our service if the stuff on the left, which is what the company controls, isn't interesting to you. So if you're like, it's not worth the price to get us all aligned around a single cohesive story, it's not worth the price to have made a bet and chosen an ICP and had someone help us do that. If that's not worth it to you, don't buy us. If you're only buying us for the customer side, then I would say you're taking a risk, because those customer outcomes, we cannot control them. You cannot control them. We don't live in a dictatorship where the government or whoever can tell you, no, customer, you must buy this, like by threat of, violence, right, or something. You have to buy this service. And I think in general, most consultants and freelancers and service providers and even software companies would do better to just promise things that the company itself can control and stop promising customer outcomes, because there's this gap between the two. And it's like, all right, we got everything right. Let's throw it over the fence. And we're hoping it works. We're hoping they come back and reciprocate. Like, and like, from the music world, you could have the best band, the best artist, the best producers, the best marketing strategy. And at the end of the day, we're putting out the album. We really hope people like it. And sometimes they still don't, even when we had all the right stuff. The market is fickle. The market's going to do what the market wants. We can't control it. And in the business world, it's identical, but we pretend it's not. We're like, oh yeah, work with me and I'll guarantee to 5X or whatever. It's like, no, you're not. We're all guessing. We're all hoping. Everyone's just crossing their fingers, lobbing it over the fence and hoping that they come back and be like, I'm hook, line, and sinker, whatever, whatever metaphor you want to do. I've used too many. They're all mixing.
I'm glad you brought up the band, because I wanted to mention that earlier, and we just kind of got rabbit holing. What caught my attention was a post that you had recently where you said, I don't usually share this content, but since it looks like a lot of my closer contacts are the ones who are getting most of my posts, I figured I'd give you what you want anyway, which is my band content. And I immediately clicked over. Love the good hangs. I'd love you to tell us about the band, where it came out, and then maybe we can find some parallels between being we'll call it headlining and writing headlines. How about that?
I
Maybe,
love it. I
maybe,
love it.
maybe that's the title of the episode.
That's great. It's really funny actually, and this is going to sound like super nerdy, which I guess is great for the podcast, right? Uh, all of the same positioning principles that we used with the business, we also used with the band. And this was this was not like, it just happened that we like sat down with the band and we were like, let's do the Fletch model on the band that we're going to start and see if it works. Because we had done all the stuff in B2B. And this was a very B2C world, right? Like the band going to consumers. And so me and the other bandmates had been in bunches of different bands in the past. And we always were following our artistic integrity and going, we like all sorts of different genres. We'll do this genre and that genre for one song and stuff like that. And effectively, we were doing the same thing that agency was doing. We're offering all these different things and nobody was shopping for all of them at the same time. So we put out this album before we did this exercise. We put out this album, 10 songs on it. I would say all 10 were 10 different genres. And it was like, and because we were very eclectic, we like all 10 genres. So this is great. Every single person we showed the album to, they were like this. I really like song 2 and 3. I didn't really get into any of the other ones. So when I was like, I love that 8th song. I didn't like anything else though. What we found is like people have specific genres they like. And the fact, there was even a moment where Spotify did this algorithm thing where it was like, how unique is your listening profile? And I'm not saying this is a brag, but like me, my brother who's in the band and our singer, it was like, you have a 98% unique music profile. So I'm like, oh, great. So if we write this album for us, like we've cut out everyone. So when we started this one, we were like, okay, what are all the principles that we've learned from this business, on the side? Well, there are fixed markets and they have things that they want. And it's very easy to market something if you pick a group of customers and say, I'm just making it for you. And I'm going to make it exactly how you would want. And I'm going to use marketing strategies to get it in front of you. Like marketing 101. So we actually made 5 playlists of 5 different genres that we liked. And we sat down and we said, okay, we could do this electronic stuff that we like. That puts us in one bucket. We could do this like indie stuff in this other bucket. And we had 5 of them. And the third one, we were like, we could be a pop punk band. And so then we evaluated and we actually picked the electronic one. We were like, we want to make this style of like really cool underground electronic music. And then we were like, what do the concerts look like? And we went to our favorite band of the group and we watched a YouTube video and it was literally a guy at a DJ booth. He had a turntable. And we're like,
Yep.
what?
There's no energy. There's
no,
yeah.
We're like, we all play instruments and stuff. So we were like, okay, that's not going to be the right. So then we pivoted and we were like, okay, which of these markets do we think we could actually be competitive in? So we looked at the indie one. We're like, well, what do the indie ones have in common? Their singers are all incredibly good looking and well dressed. And we were like,
we're out.
Yeah, it's not us. And then we were like, we went through them all. We were like, we could do this like pop music. And we're like, they're all incredible American Idol level singers. None of us are good at singing. That's not going to work. Went through, we see the pop punk one. We go, what is the thing about pop punk? The singers are whiny and nasally by design. They're not good. That's us, right? We aren't very good at singing either. We can do the whiny and nasally thing too. And so we look, we're like, who are the big pop punk bands now? And they were like, we thought they weren't very good. We're like, they're all okay. I mean, some of them are fine, but most of them are like this like pretty run-of-the-mill cookie cutter. So like, it feels like we could probably compete in this space and maybe actually get some fans. And we picked a hyper-specific group of people. It's kind of a mirror of us. We're like, it's people in the early 2000s who loved pop punk in the early 2000s. And that's probably the only pop punk that they listen to this day because they don't like the new stuff. The same way that we listen to the new stuff, we're like, I don't really like this. It doesn't sound like the pop punk from when I was in high school or middle school or whatever. What if we just tried to make the early 2000s music for that same group of people who feels very underserved by the rest of the pop punk of today? And that's like a big startup theory, right? Like lean startup is like find a group of people underserved by the market leader and then go after them and be like, we've built a solution that doesn't have any of the problems. So like we were like, went to those people and we were like thinking, let's make a music for them. So we wrote a bunch of songs. We did a marketing strategy where we would post on Instagram. We'd make these reels and TikTok and stuff where we basically were like, does this sound like you? And we would show all these early 2000s nostalgic like images and albums and like, was this in your, stuff like that? Like, then you probably will like our band. And then we would play our song and it would sound just like these early albums. And then we wrote like a big bio. We put it on the Spotify and then we just start putting it out there and it starts working. And people would say, I read your bio. It literally was like written for me exactly. Like, this music sounds exactly what I liked back then. I don't like any of the new stuff. And so we start putting it out, and the ball starts going slowly. B2C growth is slow, maybe B2B as well, but B2C especially is like slow growth. So like for a while, we're like, okay, first year we've got 2,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Then it's like next year, maybe we've got 10,000 or something. Then it starts speeding up. And then we were like, we got some Spotify starts pushing us algorithmically in the same way that the LinkedIn content gets pushed algorithmically. Spotify actually does this as well. Whenever you turn on the radio or the DJ feature or Discover Weekly or Release Radar, all these things are like algorithmically generated. And we start seeing people follow us on Instagram and they say, I was listening to this band, and they say a band that's like doing the same strategy as us. And you came on right after, and I listened and I loved it. And so it became this flywheel. And now, like, we'll read the pop punk Reddit every once in a while. People are talking about us like, this band came out of nowhere. It's exactly what we loved. And then it still keeps going. And then it snowballs. And now we have like around 120,000 people listen to us on a monthly basis. We've got a couple songs that have one song has over 1 million streams. Another has over 3 million streams. And the numbers are ticking up. Spotify sends us like a $2,500 check every month. And that number gets a little bit bigger with the more streams and stuff. And so it like feels like it's working. And it's like, it's because of the same underlying marketing principles that all the stuff, in the B2B software world does. It's all the same. It's basic human marketing principles. And like when I told that story to a group of people at this, like we went to this marketing conference, we're all having, drinks and stuff. And I'm telling this about, and the one guy, he was like, that sounds horrible. Like, why would you think about, because I was showing him like we track all the numbers and all the analytics and stuff. He's like, don't you just want to make music?
You just want to have fun?
Yeah, don't you want to have fun? And I'm like, yeah, we did that for 20 years. We've been having fun since I was 10. Like now we want to have like an actual fan base. We want to have when we put out songs, we want people to listen to them. And so now like putting on that marketing hat, like, yeah, maybe you could say you've destroyed the artistic integrity, but at the same time, it's like, there's a concept of founder market fit. Like you're not going to start like a logistics startup if you know nothing about logistics. Like you have to actually care about the thing you're doing. Like we love the pop punk music, and we're not making music we don't care about. Like we love what we're putting out. We just put a little guardrails on it to make it a little bit easier to market.
Yeah. And I've really enjoyed listening. I will include Spotify links in the homework section. I always like to have resources and homework. So
I love that.
You've mentioned April Dunford several times. Who are some other people that you admire, people who inspire you, either musically or business wise?
Yeah, I mean, other people doing similar stuff, like some early inspirations was like a lady named Elena Verna, who's a big PLG lady. Now she's head of growth at Lovable, the AI coding app, which I've
started using that this week.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. She was awesome. Like she was a really big inspiration for us at the beginning, because she would do these unbelievably powerful frameworks and would share them. And like that was how she got a huge audience, was sharing these like really deep, thoughtful frameworks all the time. And we were like, oh, if we could only do that. So we started posting, like trying to basically emulate her. April, right? Like we love her book and stuff. She doesn't really do that, like posting frameworks and stuff like Elena was doing. So, but we love her as well. Big inspiration. People like Andy Raskin, like these people who have built these really large businesses around these kind of concepts. And then there's like a lot of other people like just in the field who do similar stuff as us that we really like. Like there's a guy named John Itkin. He's got some great positioning content. Other people like Emma Stratton. She's great.
I love Emma. Yeah.
Yeah. She's written a bunch of good stuff. She has the book that just, came out not that too long ago.
It's
probably
over here. It's over here someplace. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lady named Rachel Lambert. She ran a product marketing consultancy early on. She like reached out to me and was like, we've got this product marketing group, brought me in. And so that was like some of our first exposure to like a lot of these product marketing people. Her company's called Olivine. And now she's doing a different startup. But yeah, lots of cool people like that. And then like, music wise, it's like all the OG people that I loved growing up. It's like in that field, like the Blink-182s, Jimmy Eat World, Dashboard Confessional, Taking Back Sunday. Some of these like early artists like they're still pretty much the same influences that are driving us today.
Yeah. Speaking of brothers and bands, I used to work very early when I was on a help desk with a guy, his twin brother. They were in a band called Splitsville.
Cool.
and like very small, but they got they're big in Japan, like literally big in
Nice.
Japan. And they haven't put anything out for decades, and they just announced their brand new album. And I'm like, I listened to some of the clips. I'm like, it sounds just like the music from 20 years ago.
I love it.
I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm very excited. Um, any final closing words? Any advice to somebody who wants to get into technical positioning, or even just for that founder out there that is like, it's all up here, and I know it, but I can't see it.
Yeah.
What do you think would be like the first step besides calling Fletch?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say check out our content. Like, we post stuff like this all the time in LinkedIn, and we have this Notion database of all of our posts that we have on our website, and basically it's like a good starting point of everything we think. But you could also just scroll back through and look at some of the older posts and things like that, because we have a bunch of helpful frameworks of like, here's how to map out your positioning and evaluate these different options and things like that. So I'd say that's probably your easiest starting point if you want to learn from our perspective, right? But again, like, April Dunford's book is awesome, obviously awesome. She just came out with a new one, Sales Pitch. Like, all these people's materials, that we're all saying very similar things with slightly different packaging, different vernacular, like different definitions. But I think everyone is kind of describing the same underlying fundamental marketing reality, just with their own spin on it. So it's like, some people might find her easier to grasp than ours, and vice versa. And that's totally fine. I think as long as more people are adopting like very foundational marketing principles, like, the better.
Yeah, I'm gonna head out and buy the Notion database, because I saw that. I was like, what, $50 you're giving that up? Yeah, that's like a no brainer. Just at
Oh,
least
you're too kind.
to compare and contrast and bounce stuff off of. It's like having you in the room. Thank you so much for joining. Maybe what I'll do as a treat is go out on one of your songs into the outro. Which one would you recommend I drop in here?
Oh, our main one is called the long title, which is, this is how titles used to be in the early 2000s. So this is it's a joke, because that's how they all did it. But it's a very serious song. It's very depressing, but they always would use silly titles. So it was called "I Only Do Push-Ups When I'm Drunk." It's our biggest song by far, and it is, again, if you read the lyrics, they are very serious and upsetting and emo. But that was the trend back then, and so it said, let's keep doing it now. They do these long, funny titles for these very serious songs.
Awesome. Well, we'll go out on that one. Thank you so much for joining today, Anthony. This has been a blast, man.
All right. Thank you so much to Anthony for joining me, and thank you so much for sticking with me during my little bitty hiatus. I got a little busy releasing the book and working on a brand new show, so I am actually bringing live to the stage Message Therapy Live. It's a game show version of the workshop that I do. If you're interested, you can find information over at nerdthattalksgood.com. If you want all of the resources, all of the links to the stuff we talked about today, that is going to be down in the show notes in the homework section. And once again, thanks for joining me. Thanks for sticking with me. Give me a thumbs up, a like, stars, whatever, all the things on all the platforms. And remember, you don't have to speak perfectly well. You only got to learn how to talk good. See ya. If you want links to the resources mentioned on the show, head on over to the episode page. And for information on booking a message therapy workshop, getting your hands on the message deck, to check out my book, or just buy me a coffee, go to nerdthattalksgood.com/podcast. Until next time, happy messaging.